Hey there and welcome back to Elysium. My name is Ellie and today is the first episode of Nerdy DIY. I wanted to start this series of really fun DIY projects that kind of have a geeky, nerdy flair to them. So in today's episode, I am going to show you how I made this super fun glow-in-the-dark Undertale candy cup. Look at this slightly blurry photo of it glowing in the dark because I haven't the slightest clue about glow-in-the-dark photography. If you don't know what a candy cup is, it is not actually made of candy. In fact, it is made of hard plastic, and it's just a fun kind of bracelet. It's really popular in rave culture. I like them just because they look like pixels. Back in the day, I used to make tons of these things. I had a Mario mushroom one, I had a Sonic the Hedgehog. I designed some Night Vale candy cups for a giveaway I had over on my Tumblr blog about 2 summers ago. And I think my favorite one I had was this pattern I followed for a glow-in-the-dark rocket ship with a bunch of stars. And they're just super fun. They're fun to wear. They remind me of video games, old 8-bit video games. I think they're great. So I was thinking the other day, what could I make for a fun Undertale accessory that's kind of unique and not really all that common? And then I thought pixel art like Undertale, and these look like pixels, so it kind of was a logical conclusion. I wanted to pick the Delta Rune, which is seen on Toriel's dress and in the castle halls in Asgore's palace. And I want it to be blue like the attacks that don't kill you if you don't move. Candy cups are really easy to make, but they are a bit of a learning curve. It's a lot of weaving through the beads, and it can be a little tricky. For like the first 2 or 3 rows are a little rough, but if you make it through that, you can make it through the rest of it like nothing. I tried my best to show how I did this step by step, but some of the camera angles don't really lend themselves to this very well. So please, if you get confused or lost, leave a comment. I will try to help you out as best as I can. But it's pretty simple, and once you get through the first 2 or 3 rows, like I said, so easy the rest of the way. All you need are some plastic beads, and elastic stretch cord, scissors, and some clear nail polish. So go raid the little kids craft aisle at the store because you know you want to, and it's super fun too. And let's get going. So the first thing you'll need is a pattern. You can find tons of them available for free online. I like the website candypatterns.com. I will put a link to it in the description. They have so many free patterns that you can browse, but they also have a pattern creator, which is super user-friendly, very easy. I love it. That's how I made the pattern that I'm going to use for this tutorial, which I will provide a download link for the pattern I use in the description below as well. Once you've printed off the pattern, it's important to know how to read it. And forgive my printer, it's barely clinging to life, so the colors on this are completely whack, but that's okay. What we need are the numbered rows and the basic colors so that we know where to change from black beads to blue beads. So the pattern reads from right to left, down to up. It's very counterintuitive for native English speakers, and I know it's a bit of a learning curve, but trust me, you will catch on to this so much faster than you think. If you'll notice, the first row actually takes up the space of 2 rows. That means you're going to have twice as many beads strung on the first row of your bracelet as on any of the other rows. That's how you start it off so that it can weave tightly together. One thing that's important to note is that the starting point of each row will shift diagonally upwards as we work. That's why before I even start, I like to get a Sharpie and draw along the printed pattern just to make sure I know where the first bead of each row will sit on the pattern as I read it. I'll mark it for you on the pattern download that I will put into the description so that you don't have to use a Sharpie. You can just print it out, and the bold line will show you where the starting point of each row is going to be. Now that we have the pattern, we can count how many of each bead we're going to actually need. It's a really good idea to separate the bead colors beforehand into plastic containers so you can just reach in and grab out how many you need of each color. For this project, we will need 167 black beads and 57 glow-in-the-dark blue beads. Again, these beads are available super cheap at craft stores, at Walmarts. We will also need some elastic beading cord. I use bead and stretch. It doesn't tie the cleanest knots, which is why you will also want to have on hand some clear nail polish to finish off those knots and make sure they stay stuck. Cut enough elastic cord that you won't have to change it for quite some time. You can either measure this in arm's lengths, or what I did was wrap it around my wrist until it coiled 4 or 5 times, and then cut it there. Because this elastic cord is so much smaller in diameter than each bead, we're going to have to tie the loose end onto something stable so that it doesn't come undone. I like to tie it to the scissors that I'm using, and just use the scissors as an anchor point so that my bracelet can be built without having to worry about that end falling undone. So now, as we take the pattern, we can read the rows going from right to left and see how many beads we're going to need of each color and in what order. It is a very good idea to stay organized by lining up the beads you will need before each row. As you can see here, we are going to need 16 black beads, 1 blue bead, and then 14 more black beads. I lined them all up so that I wouldn't get confused along the way. String on those beads you lined up in the order that you've lined them up. Once you've reached the end of that first row, what you'll do is pull the elastic through that first bead as if you're continuing to thread it through a second time. Now is when you'll start in on the second row of your pattern. But remember when you read the pattern that you're going to be moving the starting bead up 1 row and over 1 to the left. So you'll be starting with the second row on the second 2 from the right. Now you will also see on the pattern that the numbers skip a column in between. That's because you're going to take the elastic cord, string it through the first bead of the second row, and then loop it back down into the next bead on the first row. It's like a form of weaving where you will jump over 1 bead, thread on the second row bead, and then go back down through the next bead of the first. It's kind of like leapfrog. Be sure you're keeping the elastic cord as tightly pulled as possible. This is what will actually help the cuff stand up. Now here at the end of the second row, things might get a little tricky, but don't worry, it's simple. What you'll do is take the elastic cord and thread it through that last bead of the second row, and then pull it back through the next bead of the first row, and then pull it through the first starter bead that you strung of the second row. And now you're ready to start row 3, doing the exact same thing. The third row is the hardest. Be sure you're pulling that cord really tight so that the cuff starts to stand up on its own. And from then on, it's the same thing over and over again. Here's what happens if you run out of elastic cord. What to do then? Cut a new length of elastic cord, about as long as the last one was. You cross the free end of the working cord with the new cord, pull it over like you're about to start tying shoes, pull both ends up to match, and then cross them and pull one under again. It'll make a good solid knot as long as you really pull tightly on all 4 ends of the cord. This is where the clear nail polish comes in super handy. Just put a dot of it onto the knot, let it dry for a few seconds, trim your ends, and you are ready to keep on working with that cord. You should find at some point that the cuff stands up on its own pretty well. That's when it's safe to finally take it off of the scissors or whatever you had it anchored to with that initial end of starting cord. Untie it, then take it and work backwards, weaving up and down through some of the first row of beads on the cuff. Take the cord, push it down through a gap between 2 of the beads, pull it up, and pull the end through the loop that you've just made. And then loop it through a second time and pull it tight. I recommend then doing the whole process again, weaving through a few more beads and tying an identical knot a few beads over, just for extra security. Be sure you're dotting these knots as well with the clear nail polish just to make sure they don't come untied. Alright, when you reach the 13th row, you're almost done. Finishing the top of the cuff is exactly like finishing the bottom. So that's it! You're done! Yay! I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you're able to follow along, okay, and come up with your own fun Kandi Undertale bracelet. If you feel inspired, go ahead and try creating your own designs based on video games or pixels or anything else you like. They're super fun to create designs, super easy to make now that you know how, and you can do just about anything with them. And of course, the best ones are the ones that glow in the dark. Look at it glow! And Kandi are super fun because you've always wanted an excuse to go down that really colorful little kids aisle at the craft store, and now you finally have one! So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like and consider subscribing for more fun, nerdy DIYs to come in the future. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll catch you later!